to form. We're moving on to form 5, 6, 5 and 6. Okay. Okay. So basically, it says here that they are normally used to be reflexives of form 2 and 3. Anybody know what that means? Okay. Of reflexives, it seems to mean that that the verb is referring back to the one who's speaking. So it'll have the meaning of form 2 and 3, but it will refer back to the speaker. So we will do some examples and then we will know what we mean. So again, this form is the form 5 first is on the scale of the fa'ala. Okay, don't get confused. Ta is not alamatul mudari, it's not a sign of mudari. This is additional ta. Okay.
So for madari, we have to add an additional ta.
Yes. Yes. So here gives you the past tense. Ana tasallamtu. So it takes the. It also has a shadda on the second root letter. So tafa'ala on the ain, he had on the second radical he has shadda, and he has additional ta in the past tense. So ana tasallamtu, nahnu tasallamna, anta. So again, I think you if you can't make it, do let me know, but I think you can. Anta tasallamta, antuma tasallamtuma, antum atasallamtu, anti, because it's fixed form, it's just you're adding ta at the start and you're having shut down the second letter. Tasallamti, antum, antuma tasallamtuma, antunna tasallamtunna, huwa tasallama, huma tasallama, hum tasallamu, hiya tasallamat. You happy with that?
Sir,
Yes.
in form 2 we had sallama means to deliver. So
Yes.
is it with that same meaning, this verb a little change, or it has a complete different meaning?
So it's similar. So it was deliver, right? And here it should tell you, it means to take over or receive. So like I said, the verb will refer back to the person. So it means deliver, and tasallama means to receive. So the delivery is being done to the person. So you are receiving or taking over. So you are taking the delivery. So the meaning is the same, to deliver, but instead of referring to other people, is referring back to the person. So the delivery is coming to the person. So in a way, it's reflecting the meaning on the person. So the meaning changes slightly based on that. But when you look at the we're gonna do some examples. I think after we've done the scale, so we should make it be clear. So it still has a meaning of delivery, but he has the meaning of delivery to the person who's speaking. So it becomes receive. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. So
Okay.
for example, here tasallam tu means I am taking over or I am receiving.
Yes. Yes. So this is this one here, doing the mudare. Does the scale make sense?
Yes, sir.
Sudais make sense? She's gone. And she's left the call, which is probably internet issues. Okay, so doing the mudare, like Sudais mentioned, this is additional. So if you want to, when you do mudare, you're going to add additional letter. So ana ata sallamu. So everything remains the same. Only thing that's going to change is you're going to add the additional the lamat al-mudari fully or the sign of mudari, and obviously the last letter will take dhamma. Atasallamu, ana atasallamu, anta tatasallamu. Remember, there's 2,000 now because one is the additional ta, second one is the sign of mudari. Anta tatasallamu, and antuma tatasallamani, antum tatasallamuna, anti tatasallamina, anti hiya, anti tatasallamina, antuma tatasallamani, antunna tatasallamna, huwa yatasallamu, huma yatasallamani, hum yatasallamuna, hiya tatasallamu, hiya tatasallamu. So huma tatasallamani, hunna yatasallamna. So basically, if you look at these, so the way that author does is he always does when he writes it down, because you should be able to work it out, but it always starts with the third person, right? First it starts with masculine, third person masculine, then third person feminine. Then it goes to second person. It doesn't give you everything, it just gives you for the only singular. Then he does the male first, then the female. And then it goes to the first person. So in all his scales, it's the same. So you know, this is the huwa, this is hiya, this is anta, this is anti, this is ana. And here it just gives you when it's subjunctive. So when there's a particle like an before. Only difference is the last letter will then take a fatha. Or when it's Yusuf, when majzoom, lam yatasallam, right? It becomes sakunatan. That's all it is. I think this sort of makes sense to you both. If it doesn't, do let me know. Imperative. How are we going to form the imperative, the amr? We always mention the rule is that we drop the first letter from mudare, the alamat al-mudare. So normally you would say anta tatasallam, you would say anta tatasallamu, right? Normally, tatasallamu. First thing you do is this becomes majzoof. Second is you drop this. And now, do you need to add alif? No. Why don't you need to add alif? Because this already has a haraka. Does it make sense?
Yes, sir.
So it becomes tasallam. Tasallam. Anta tasallam, antuma tasallama, antum tasallamu, anti tasallami. This is anti tasallami. Antuma tasallama, antunna tasallamna. So again, you're going to take time because these are new forms, but don't forget, when you do the exercises, again, these words will come again and again, and there's not a huge amount of forms. There's only going to be, I think this gives 11 forms. There's more, but those are very rare. And then it's going to start with the other verbs. But inshallah, it's practice as well. This practice makes perfect. Participle, which is fa'il, ism fa'il, mutasallim. Mutasallim. Okay, so it's similar to other skills. So the ism file for all these skills that we've done from scale 2 onwards, they always ism file and maf'ul both start with meme and dhamma at the start. The difference is that the active participle, so the ism file, the dua is always has a kasra on the second radical, and the ism of rule, the one the action is done upon, is or has a fatha on this on the second radical. Mutasallimun, mutasallamun.
So is this pattern applied for all the forms?
Form 2 onwards, not form 1. What's the form 1? What's the pattern in form 1? Do you remember? How do you say ism fa'il, ism maf'ul?
We add a alif.
Yeah.
Katib.
So katibun, right? Or daribun. So in form
Yes.
1, it was, you know, when you say fa'il, means dua, it's on the same scale as fa'il. Fa'ilun. So that's the dua is on the scale of fa'ilun, and the one action is done only is on the scale of maf'ulun. That's what the name sort of comes from. It's on the same scale, maf'ulun. So it'll be madrubun. So from form 2 onwards, they always start with meme. They don't have vav after that. They have the difference between active and passive is always fatha on the active. The dua has a kasra on the active. So this is the dua, and the receiver has a fatha, or the person or the thing, the action has been done upon. And the verbal noun is tasallumun. So tasallumun verbal noun is the description of the action. Again, it gives you passive here as well. Tasallima, to sallima, to sullima, to sullima. So here it's a bit different. I think this is probably the only verb it's going to be different. It has 2 dhammas at the start. This is passive. So these are a bit different. I mentioned earlier there's no difference. So there is actually in this. This is the passive, perfect passive of past tense. To tasallima. There's going to be. And don't forget the meme is not meme is just additional. To. And but it has kasra on the second radical as well. To sillim to. Ana to sillim to. Nahnu to sullimna, and so forth. I think there's a website. Do you both have Arabic keyboards on your computer? Because I think there's a website or maybe an app where you can put in a verb and it gives you the full conjunction. And it shouldn't be a way of copying or anything like that, but it should be way. If you're not sure, you could always put in there and for memorization purposes. Nahnu tusallimna, anta tusallimta, and so forth. Does it make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And passive for the mudare is yutasallamu. Okay. The way it changes from the maruf or the active is that the first radical gets a dhamma here. And as we mentioned with mudare, the first radical normally has dhamma in passive. We're talking about the passive of present or future. First radical, the first letter, whether it's first letter is always dhamma, and then the second radical, second root letter has a fatha. Mutasallamu. Ana utasallamu, nahnu nutasallamu, anta tutasallamu, anti tutasallamina, and so forth. Any questions? If you do have questions, don't hesitate to ask. Okay. Okay, so moving on to the meaning pattern. So this is the form 5 we're talking about. This is most frequently the reflexive of form 2. So which I mean, it's a similar meaning to form 2. So the meaning you had in form 2, all you do mostly is change it to reflect it to the person who is a speaker. So farraka means to separate. Tafarraka means to separate oneself. Separation is applied to the person who's talking. So in other words, the meaning is to scatter. So in the bracket, it gives you, if you make it reflexive, literally what would it mean? And in the answer the bracket is the meaning normally we use. Allama means to teach. Ta'allama, same teaching, but you apply to oneself, to teach oneself. What we call that? We call that learning, right? Zakkara, to remind somebody. Zakkara, to be reminded. Okay, the action has been applied to the person. So the meaning comes to remember. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's also used to form verbs from nouns, especially nouns of quality or status. The Nasraniyun means Christian. The Nassara means to become a Christian. Yahudiyun is a Jew. The Hawwada is to become a Jew. These are form 5. The Nassara, yatanassaru. The Hawwada, yatahawwadu. So closely related to meaning B is that of thinking or representing oneself to have a certain quality or status. So here was quality or status as well, but this was derived from nouns. Here is that it's about quality or status, but it's a person thinking or representing oneself to have certain qualities. For example, kabirun means big, great. Takabbara means to think oneself great, to be proud, right? To be proud. Takabbara. Takabbur household. Takabbur, right? Takabbur comes from ism. Look, the verbal noun. Takabbur. This is purely Arabic word used in Urdu, right? Takabbur means pride or arrogance, right? Takabbara yatakabbaru. Takabburan. Takabburan is the verbal noun. Nabiyun is a prophet. Tanabba'a, to represent oneself to be a prophet. Form 6. It's similar to, it's the reflexive of form. If you look at it, it's also not only in meaning, in pattern, it has some similarity to form 2. The similarity of form 3 to form and form 5 is they both have shut down the second radical. And in reflexive form, it mentioned earlier, and it makes the only difference is you sort of add the additional ta at the front. Okay. And form 5, form 6. So the form, what was form 3? Yes.
So one question I have.
Yeah.
So now, like, okay, allama. Okay, then it is ta'allama. It is on oneself. Okay, it means that I'm learning, or the person who is speaking. Okay, so then this is the active form, and how will the passive form we will translate it? Because passive form is already on the maful. I can't express my question. What I'm.
Yeah. So this form is often doesn't have a passive. So like you said, the meaning is already in the active.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say. But
yeah. So a lot of the times, because
the action, yeah, maful is only
of,
speaking. Then
yeah. So a lot of the times you're not gonna have a passive for this. So if that answers your questions, because it's like you said, it's already, it's already what we call intransitive. We call it intransitive, which is it doesn't require a object. But yeah, so a lot of the times when you read, it's not gonna have a passive. Does that make sense?
yes.
Yeah. So for example, ta'allamat means to learn. So well, it's hard to think of a passive for that. So yes, that makes sense. So mostly when you see this form, this form, it'll only be in active form. But don't forget, it doesn't. When we talk about these pattern meanings, this is the majority of times, right? So it can sometimes be you can take a passive at times. Okay, does it make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So تفاعل يتفاعل. This is تفاعل. This is the past, and in the present or in the imperfect يتفاعل. So form 3. Anybody remember form 3? What was form 3? There was no ta, but it was on fa. It was additional alif there. So was form 6 here? It just adds additional ta. Does that make sense? So what
Yes,
form 3 was qatala. Right? Fa'ala. So what's the difference? You're adding a ta here. If it's qatala, yuqatilu. Okay, we're gonna cover here. Let's do this. So qatala is the perfect, the past active. So we mentioned this is huwa. This is here. So always talks for the third person first, then talks for the second person, which is anta and anti. You can use these because it gives you majority anyway to and ana. Third person, second person, and first person. That's why he does it. So it's ana taqataltu, right? Ana taqataltu. Nahnu taqatalna. Anta taqatalta. Anti taqatalti. Here. Antuma taqataltuma. Antum taqataltum. Sorry, anta taqatalta, antuma taqataltuma, antum taqataltum, anti taqatalti, antuma taqataltuma, antunna taqataltunna, huwa taqatala, huma taqatala, hum taqatalu, hiya taqatalat, huma taqatalata, hunna taqatalna. Does it make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Then the fi'l mudari. So the indicative means without any adjustments. Fi'l mudari maruf. So this is the active of present or future. So all you do is again this additional ta. You don't change that. You're just gonna add another alamat mudari. So ana takatalu nahnu natta qatalu anta tataqatalu